Picture this. You're staring at a bowl of fruit that's seen better days. The bananas are more brown than yellow, the strawberries have developed that telltale fuzzy coating, and the peaches feel like water balloons ready to burst. Your first instinct? Toss them in the trash. But what if I told you that this rotting, sticky, smelly mess is actually a 5-star feast for your worm bin? What most gardeners see as waste, seasoned vermicomposters recognize as liquid gold for their wriggling workforce. The problem we all face. Fruit waste in every kitchen. Anyone who's ever maintained a fruit bowl knows the inevitable cycle of optimism followed by disappointment. We buy fresh produce with the best intentions, then watch helplessly as life gets busy and our beautiful fruit transforms into something that belongs in a horror movie. The average household throws away nearly 40% of the fresh produce they purchase, and overripe fruit makes up a significant portion of that waste. But here's the revolutionary truth that's about to change your perspective forever. That gross, fermented fruit sitting on your counter isn't waste at all. It's premium worm food that will supercharge your composting operation. The science behind why overripe fruit becomes irresistible to earthworms lies in the fermentation process itself. As fruit breaks down, complex carbohydrates convert into simple sugars, creating an easily digestible feast that worms can process with minimal energy expenditure. The natural yeasts and beneficial bacteria that cause fermentation actually pre-digest the fruit, making nutrients immediately available to your worms. So this is why experienced vermicomposters often prefer slightly rotted fruit over fresh produce. It's basically pre-processed fast food for worms. Why decay is actually a feature, not a flaw. The transformation from fresh fruit to fermented feast, well, it represents nature's most efficient recycling system. When fruit starts to break down, enzymes get to work breaking apart cell walls, releasing sugars, vitamins, and minerals that were previously locked away. The softening process just makes everything easier for worms to consume, and the increased moisture content helps maintain optimal humidity levels in your worm bin. Those strong fermented odors that make us wrinkle our noses actually serve as powerful attractants, drawing worms from across your entire bin. Understanding the fermentation timeline helps you maximize this natural process. Most fruits enter their optimal worm feeding stage about 3 to 7 days after they would typically be considered, too ripe for human consumption. Berries ferment quickly because of their high water content and thin skins, while denser fruits like apples and pears, well, they take a bit longer to reach peak fermentation. The key indicator isn't really appearance, but smell. When fruit develops that sweet, slightly alcoholic aroma of natural fermentation, it's reached peak attractiveness for your worms. The bacterial and fungal activity during fermentation doesn't just make fruit more appealing to worms, it actually increases the nutritional value of the final worm castings. These microorganisms break down complex compounds into forms that plants can readily absorb, while also adding beneficial bacteria that will colonize your garden soil. So, what this means is, when you feed fermented fruit to your worms, you're actually getting a double benefit. Not only do you see faster processing in the worm bin, but you also end up with a more valuable end product for your plants. Let's talk a bit about the science behind why worms are so attracted to fermented foods. Earthworms have these incredibly sensitive chemoreceptors, and they can actually detect the volatile organic compounds that are released during fermentation from pretty remarkable distances. The combination of organic acids, esters, and alcohols produced when fruit ferments really triggers some powerful feeding responses in worms. And interestingly enough, research shows that worms will actually abandon fresher food sources just to migrate toward fermented materials. They'll often cover the entire length of a worm bin in response to these chemical signals. The moisture content of fermented fruit creates ideal conditions for worm digestion. Worms must keep their skin constantly moist to breathe through their epidermis, and the high water content of rotting fruit helps maintain this crucial moisture while providing easy-to-process nutrition. The natural acids produced during fermentation also help regulate pH levels in the worm bin, creating an environment that promotes beneficial bacterial growth while suppressing harmful pathogens. Temperature plays a fascinating role in this process as well. Fermentation generates mild heat, and worms are naturally drawn to these warmer microenvironments, especially during cooler months. This thermal attraction combined with the chemical signals and ideal texture makes fermented fruit irresistible to earthworms. Many vermicomposters report that adding fermented fruit can trigger feeding frenzies where hundreds of worms converge on a single area within hours. Alright, let's talk about preparation techniques that really maximize worm appeal. Proper preparation actually transforms good fermented fruit into, well, irresistible worm candy. The main goal here is to increase the surface area, but still maintain all that beneficial fermentation, without creating those pesky anaerobic conditions that could turn helpful fermentation into putrid rot. Chopping overripe fruit into, say, inch-sized pieces gives you optimal surface area for worm access, while also preventing the formation of those anaerobic pockets that could lead to harmful bacteria, or honestly, some pretty unpleasant odors. And for extremely soft fruit like super ripe bananas or mushy berries, mashing instead of chopping usually works a whole lot better. Create a chunky puree that maintains some texture. Completely smooth purees can create oxygen-poor environments that lead to anaerobic decomposition. Adding a handful of shredded newspaper or coconut coir to very wet fermented fruit helps absorb excess moisture while providing carbon to balance the high nitrogen content. Timing your fruit preparation with your worm's feeding schedule maximizes the benefits. Prepare fermented fruit during your regular feeding times and bury it slightly under existing bedding material. This prevents fruit flies while allowing the fermentation aromas to attract worms through the bedding layers. Many successful vermicomposters prepare a week's worth of fermented fruit at once, storing portions in covered containers that continue to ferment until feeding time. Transform your kitchen waste from a source of guilt into a cornerstone of sustainable gardening success. Every overripe banana, every mushy strawberry, every fermented peach represents an opportunity to create premium worm castings that will revolutionize your garden's productivity. The next time you discover forgotten fruit in your kitchen, resist the urge to throw it away. Instead, recognize it for what it truly is, a perfectly fermented feast that will attract worms instantly and create the foundation for your most successful growing season yet. Ready to transform your gardening game with this simple but powerful technique? Subscribe to Smart Garden for more insider secrets that turn everyday waste into gardening gold, and share this guide with fellow gardeners who are ready to discover the hidden potential in their kitchen scraps. Your worms and your plants will thank you for it.